Chapter 25. A day off. When I woke up, Mirko was still asleep. I was thirsty and hungry. I decided to go out and get some water. She hadn't had a drink since yesterday afternoon, so I brought a bottle and put it on the nightstand near her head. The doctors said that the physical exhaustion combined with dehydration made the situation much worse than they had anticipated. Right now, she was being kept hydrated through and for drip. I think she'll sleep most of today. At least, that was the doctor's estimate. I can't stay here much longer. I need to get back to UA, or I could just call Nizu, explain my situation, and take a day off. I'm leaning more towards the second option. Taking a day off sounds great. Nizu can't really refuse, since that would make him look like a bad person. The chanting works wonders. She also needs to take care of a few things. I was being tracked, so there was no need to worry about the police getting nervous. I decided to go get some food, but I ended up calling the dispatcher to inform him of my actions. I didn't want the entire police force sending their people after me just because I was craving pizza. But pizza wasn't the only thing I was buying. I also bought a burner phone. I still need to contact Jiren later. I also made sure to pay cash in a shady place. The more shady it is, the less likely they are to keep records of these things. The shop is also in the alleys leading to my favorite pizzeria. Of course, I chose that location for this reason. Getting information about the drugs is much more important than a pizza. I think the drugs will appear on the black market in the coming months. All I had to do was follow one of the thugs who sell these drugs to his base. Since I can't remember much about the location of Shaiha Saikai, I have to get creative. I don't want to wait too long to finish them off and rescue Eri. I couldn't wait for the League of Villains to make their first appearance. I really hoped it would happen sooner, but I guess my presence didn't make all for one hasten his plans at all. Bringing that mad doctor out of hiding would be much easier after defeating his boss. I have a plan for that. Unfortunately, it could only be implemented after the attack on USJ. So, back to waiting. At this point, even training is a formality. I was already stronger than All Might by a wide margin. By the standards of this world, I was at the top. Right now, Overhaul and his team aren't a threat to me. I was more concerned with how I was going to attack them. Currently, Mirko is out of commission. She'll be out for about a week. Normally, she would need months to recover from her current condition. But the peculiarities of her healing made her recovery much faster. I need to talk to Nizu about this. I've just started hunting villains again. I didn't want to take a break yet, but I'll probably need one. Mirko was one of the few people who could reach a satisfactory speed in my eyes. If they send a slower hero to replace her, I'll simply take a break. But even when she recovers, I'll have to convince her to join me in attacking a very dangerous group of villains. Knowing her, she'll most likely agree, but she'll still inform the police, which will cause them to form a squad, something that will greatly delay my operation. Oh well, I'll deal with problems as they arise. At this moment, still in my hero costume, I was walking through the streets. I didn't take the side streets on my way back to the hospital. I could feel many eyes directed my way. I already knew I was somewhat famous, but this made me feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe that's why celebrities wear masks. I managed to ignore the stares, returning to the hospital with a pizza box in hand. Please refrain from saying pizza time at reception. I went back to Mirko's room. This was going to be a boring and relaxing day. Even with my weights on, Rumi Usajiyama's POV. The first thing I saw upon waking was an unfamiliar ceiling. Slowly, memories returned. I had fainted in the hospital. I've never been that exhausted. Right now, I can't feel a single muscle. Looking around, I could see a water bottle on my bedside table to my right. I couldn't move my body, so I could only look at it for now. Even looking is difficult. I can only move my neck a little. I lay there for a while. At this point, I think I can speak. Just as I was about to let out a little scream, I heard a door open. I couldn't move my head enough to see who was coming in. However, I instantly recognized his voice. "Oh, you're awake already? You've been gone for a day now." He was as lazy as ever, which calmed me down a little. I didn't like feeling so vulnerable. Before I could answer, he came into view. He was carrying a pizza box. Seeing him was somewhat relaxing, but what surprised me most was the fact that he was still wearing his hero costume. That could only mean he'd spent the night here. That warm feeling from last night returned. "How come you're here?" I couldn't hide the smile on my face as I said this. "Well, I took the day off to look after you. It's not really necessary since you're in hospital. He also gave a kind smile as he said that. Honestly, I didn't hear much of the second part. I was stuck on the fact that he took the day off to check on me. He also didn't mention that he spent the night here. I feel like I'm turning red because of this. Could this mean that he didn't want me to worry about him? He simply forgot about that. Seeing me like this made him panic. Hey, do you have a fever? His concern only made it worse. Wait, I'll get you some water. Saying that, he gently lifted my head, opened the water bottle on the nightstand, and brought it to my lips. The doctor said your mouth might get dry at some point. Since you can't move, I'll help you for now. I would usually be angry at someone for doing this kind of thing, but I couldn't help feeling safe in this moment. My condition made me vulnerable, but his presence gave me a lot of confidence. After drinking some water, I said, "Thank you." It was short and quiet, but I'm sure he heard it. He smiled brightly and simply said, "You're welcome." He then proceeded to give me a slice of pizza. After a while, he told me to go back to sleep. The doctors would check on me later. Once again, I fell asleep with a smile. Chapter 26. Training and Defeat. As I left Mirko's room, I couldn't help but think her behavior was a little strange. Even though she was somewhat touched by my help, it was the complete opposite of yesterday. I suppose she'll go back to normal after she recovers. At this point, I was heading back to UA. Since she was awake, there was no need for me to stay for long. I only visited her occasionally. Now I wanted to train with the big three. I promised her I would sometime. I started heading to my dorm first. I needed a shower after 2 days of activity. Calling Jiren would also be fine, but it wasn't urgent right now. The drug shouldn't be circulating yet. After my shower, I headed to Gym Gamma. Mirio said that's where most of the students train in their free time, either in groups or alone. Upon entering, I couldn't help but notice that there were quite a few students present. If I didn't know better, I would have thought I just walked into their classroom. But classes had ended a while ago. It seemed Mirio wasn't joking when he said most of the students practiced here. In the room, I could see at least 50 people. That meant there were sophomores and juniors here. Among them, I spotted 3 people training together. Obviously, the big 3. What other groups would I care about enough to notice? I don't know if that's their official name, but they're still at the top of the student body. As I headed in their direction, I felt a few eyes on me, perhaps some students who wanted a rematch from last time. The stares eventually stopped, probably as they returned to their own training. Upon reaching the group, Mirio was the first to notice me. "Allan, I'm glad to see you here," he said with a broad smile. "Well, you said we should train together sometime." I didn't sound that excited, but I was still in a good mood. Suddenly, I heard a voice from above. "Oh, Allan, you came." It was obviously Nijire. I could honestly hear the smile on her face. She was currently floating, probably trying to increase her speed and mobility. I just waved to her, smiling. Tamaki was just quietly saying hello. I responded by flashing beside him and patting him on the back, an action that seemed to do more harm than good. He was so startled that he jumped away from me. "I'm glad we have the chance to train together." Mirio was speaking now, completely oblivious to what had just happened. Nijire was still floating. Tamaki was also doing his own thing. "It's good to be here. The last time we talked, we didn't really decide on time to train. I thought I might show up anytime." My smile couldn't be as wide as hers. It simply wasn't biologically possible. During our brief conversation, Nijire came back down to earth. She's still a bit of an airhead, but at least she had her feet on the ground. "Allan, let's train again." Well, sparring was a good form of training. Mirio also seemed excited at the prospect, while Tamaki started to look serious. He was only shy in social situations, just as Nijire was an airhead everywhere except in a fight. "All right, the 3 of you will team up and fight me. I won't be using the speed portion of my quirk." "It's a bit disappointing to hear you say that," Mirio said, scratching the back of his neck. Without adding much more to the fight's conditions, we all took a step back. Since I was restricting myself to this extent, I could only use my quirk for offense and defense. Mirio started the countdown. "Okay, 3, 2, 1, begin." As soon as she took her stance, Nijire was instantly launched into the air. Tamaki simply waited for her to make the first move. Now, my movement speed wouldn't be used in this fight, but my attacks were still far faster than theirs. As soon as I heard Mirio give us an opening, I sent a beam of light hurtling down my leg. It traveled along the ground until it was directly beneath them. In the split second Mirio blinked, I made the light erupt from the ground, solidifying into sharp spikes. I'd made the point blunt, so as not to pierce them. Mirio managed to react in time, letting the attack pass through him. Tamaki managed to jump back, dodging some spikes. I rose higher beneath him. His speed was already too much for him. He tried to block one by turning his hand into a shell, but the spike broke through his shell and knocked him out. Nijire was slow to react, sending several shock waves toward me. This forced me to move from my position and lost contact with the light I had projected onto the ground, scattering it. Her shock waves were still dodgeable. I quickly bowed with the light, creating an arrow in the palm of my hand and aiming. Mirio quickly emerged from the ground, completely naked, and tried to punch me in the face. I quickly ducked and transformed the bow into a staff. A close-quarters fight might be what I was looking for. He was overpowering most of my attacks. I was blocking and dodging. Nijire was sending shockwaves, blocking my escape routes. I could easily accept the attacks. I was still a Logia user, but honestly, it would feel like cheating. As I swung my staff, Mirio made a mistake, dodging backward. I quickly extended the length of my staff and struck him on the head with it. Watching him fall to the ground was satisfying, most likely because it had been a good fight. Now, the only one left was Nijire. Since I was flying, she kept her distance from me. Usually, she would get closer so her waves would be less dodgy, but now she was probably hoping to tire me out. It wasn't a bad plan. Continuous dodging along with my weights would eventually become exhausting. These were, as Shigaraki called Class 1A, the golden eggs of their generation. I quickly reformed my bow while dodging. Aiming would be difficult if I kept dodging her waves, so I formed a sphere of light around myself. I could already block All Might's attacks. Nijire's waves wouldn't be so bad in comparison. The second of her attacks passed me. I created a small opening in the sphere, firing my arrow at her. The second the arrow left my grasp, it transformed into a beam of light. Honestly, the bow was mostly just for show. I didn't even know how to use one properly. I was dodging, but I wasn't trying to hit her directly. The arrow passed about a meter above her. The moment it hit her, it exploded, not an enormous explosion, just enough force to knock her out. It worked perfectly. The explosion sent her flying toward the ground. I quickly fired a flash toward her and caught her. The fight was over. There was no reason to let her fall. I laid all three of them on the ground, none of whom were seriously injured. I gave them about 10 to 15 minutes to wake up. The first to wake up was Tamaki, and he was also the first to be carried out. He seemed a little embarrassed. Don't feel so bad. My attacks were a bit tough, but you still reacted in time. If you'd had something stronger to block it with, you would have made it. I was never good at comforting people, but he seemed to appreciate the attempt, no matter how bad it was. He mumbled a small thank you. He had a rare smile on his face. Both Nijire and Mirio woke up at the same time. They were both a little shaken up. The blow to the head was most likely the cause. Maybe we should take them to Recovery Girl. Tamaki made a logical suggestion. Yeah, that sounds good. I was afraid of what was coming. I went out to the infirmary. Tamaki carried Mirio, and I carried Nijire. After placing them in the beds, I turned around and saw a furious Recovery Girl. I had hoped to avoid this beating, but here it was. My head slammed shut when she received the old hero's staff. It was my fault. I'm sorry, I tried to say as the beating continued. No matter how strong I became, I still fell victim to their wrath. Tamaki watched in horror as he defeated me. Mirio and Nijire simply found it amusing. Eventually, I managed to escape, said goodbye to them, and left, though with a few bumps on my head. I quickly made it to my room and fell asleep. I'd have time to worry about things later. Chapter 27. Media and Patrol. It's been a week since my first patrol. Looking back, I spent most of this time training with the Big Three and visiting Rumi. I figure I could manage too. The authorities didn't really try to stop me. My outings have gone from asking permission to go out to simply saying I'm going out. However, I still wear the tracking bracelet. The main reason they let me have so much influence is because of my media presence. The moment I returned to the streets, the police made sure every news station and reporter knew about it. They proceeded to broadcast this information on every screen possible. That, along with All Might's increased presence in Mizudafu, made the city almost crime-free again. Nothing is perfect. The usual naysayers will always be there, but for the most part, the city was safe. This kind of influence was already excessive. If I wasn't given freedom after work, the public might get outraged. Since this was such a high-profile case, most people know about my time at UA. They also know I'm working here. Sometimes I can sense reporters at the gate, probably hoping to get a picture of me leaving UA. The news about me was already pretty intense. Imagine the swarm that will come when they find out All Might works here. Anyway, patrolling the streets here wouldn't be very fun or productive. There aren't many villains left to catch in this place. So, I started planning to patrol other cities. Most people wouldn't really be out late at night. It's a world full of villains, and most people knew better than that. There shouldn't be anything but thugs on the streets. One place I had in mind was the Kamino district, but I think I should postpone that for now. All for One had a Kirojiri and that annoying deformity. I didn't want him to get away. I also wanted to see how my presence affected the story. After talking a bit with the police, I agreed. They would inform Rumi about this change and arrange transportation, probably a train. Now I'm back in my favorite place, the cafeteria. After eating, I plan to go out on patrol. It'll be much slower this time. I really don't want a repeat of last time. I haven't seen my training partners around here, only once. I guess they're still training. Our schedules don't often align. We only meet occasionally to train, about 3 times last week. After quickly finishing my meal and thanking Lunch Rush for it, I headed toward the entrance. It was still a bit early, about half an hour to be exact, but I didn't mind waiting a while. What I didn't expect to see was Rumi. She was already waiting at the doors. I didn't expect her to be late again, but my expectations of seeing her soon were much lower. She reminded me of her strange behavior during the first few days of her hospital stay. I wasn't going to ask too many questions. I didn't know what was going on in her head. I blinked behind her, touched her shoulder, and greeted her. Hey, hi Rumi, have you been here long? I'd stopped calling her Mirko in conversations. It just felt strange to do so. She hadn't called me by my hero name either. She was a little startled by my sudden appearance, but she recovered almost instantly. Hi Allan, I just got here. I thought I'd arrive a little early today, especially since I was so late last time. At least she was acting more confident than she had at the hospital. Did they tell you about the change of location? I hoped I wouldn't have to inform her about this. Yes, let's start heading towards the train station. It's still early, so there's no need to rush. She said that while waving some train tickets in front of me. We slowly made our way to the train station. The train we were supposed to take wasn't due for another 2 hours, so we had plenty of time. We didn't even bother running. It was more like a jog across the rooftops. When we got to the station, we sat down for a while. We still had to wait for about an hour. So, how have you been feeling lately? I couldn't just ignore her this time. She seemed quite kind. Oh, I'm fine. It wasn't a big deal anyway. I mostly recovered 3 days after waking up. They kept me there mainly for tests. I already knew most of it. I'd visited her all week. We chatted for a while, but she mostly remained silent until she had this idea. Hey, we should start training together. I didn't really know what she was expecting. She had this wide smile on her face. Actually, she wasn't asking. This was more of a suggestion than a question. I couldn't help but smile at her. Sure, I still have plenty of free time on my hands. I wasn't going to train with the big 3 all the time anyway. Rumi was stronger too. She'd proved to be a better training partner than them. Seeing me accept her suggestion excited her quite a bit. She was probably excited to spar with someone strong. At least that's what I think. He's quite a complicated person. We didn't talk much after that. He seemed to be in his own world for a while. I also had my own thoughts, like what to do when I was bored. I still had plenty of things I could do. But one thing on my mind lately was recreating One Piece in this world. It's the only story I'm confident enough to write. I'm still worried about the ending, but I think I can come up with some things. It won't be the same quality, though. I've wanted to become a manga artist for a while now. It's not the best profession, but I want to see how a story about piracy is received in this climate. In this world, most stories are about heroes and villains. Mainly because weak people fantasize about being heroes. I'll probably start writing it later. The art doesn't have to be perfect. The patrol itself wasn't anything new. The only difference was that I didn't know the streets very well. Today was much slower. It was even quite relaxing. There weren't that many villains in this city. There were even fewer of them after news about our patrol started circulating. During this time, Rumi and I exchanged a few words. She's probably looking forward to our training. Her opinion about the teams didn't change one bit. She still preferred to do her own thing. But at least she no longer saw me as a nuisance. The night ended uneventfully, quite boring in my opinion. I said goodbye to Rumi and headed home. Going to sleep is still the highlight of my day. Chapter 28. Struggle and Progress. Time skipped 3 months. Tomorrow is a big day for me. I heard the cafeteria is serving a new kind of lasagna. Lunch Rush just got back from a short vacation in Italy, where he learned some new recipes. I've missed him a lot during this time. My days seemed so bleak without his amazing cooking. In the last few weeks, some interesting things have happened. I started training with Rumi, and now we spend most of our free time training. At first, we only wanted to train once or twice a week, but then the big three, my only friends at the moment, had some exams and couldn't train me anymore. Rumi and I mostly train in a forest, the closest one to the city. I don't really remember if it had a name. I also contacted Jiren for the first time in a long time. The drug hasn't appeared yet. Jiren himself is a bit skeptical about whether such a drug even exists in the first place, but he's getting paid. I think it'll turn up very soon. I had quite a bit of money now. Who knew the government was so generous with heroes? It might be because I have so many cases a month. Right now, I still haven't decided whether to publish one piece. I've done a few chapters. The art is crap, but the story is good, mostly because it's not really mine. If I weren't such an autistic fan in my past life, I wouldn't even bother trying to copy such a long story. I read it about 68 times in my past life. I also received the live streaming bracelet a while ago, but I still patrol with Rumi quite often. As much as she hates that word, we're a team now. Recently, my quirk has been getting stronger and stronger, growing along with my physical body. Majima had finished the weight training clothes. At first, they weren't very good. They couldn't handle much weight and clung too tightly. But he kept making adjustments. At first, they were quite tight on my body, but now I wear them every day. I ordered about 5 pairs, so I wouldn't have to carry around dirty clothes. I even ordered a version I could wear under my hero costume. Majima was really pleased with his product and started promoting it as training gear for students and teachers. 1 pair is free. If you want more, you have to buy them. I think Mirio wears his pair all the time, too. It took off with most of the male students. In fact, very few girls actually used it. They had more luggage than the boys, which made the training clothes heavy. I think Majima is still working on a women's version. I'll probably buy one for Rumi. During our training, she just wears regular gym clothes. She also started using high-density weight bracelets. I bought her a set after my first paycheck as a hero. She's gotten used to them now. Lately, Rumi has been showing quite a bit of progress. Not as much as me, but still a lot. I think the only thing holding her back is the lack of action. We haven't had an encounter with any dangerous villains in a long time. The only decent one was a guy with a mantis quirk, and he was fast enough to be troublesome for Rumi. Obviously, I let her handle it. There was no point in hogging all the fun. During tough fights, she enjoys the adrenaline rush, but her smile widens even more when she fights me. Looking back, she really hates it when I'm distracted during our training sessions. Maybe I should pay more attention to her. Raising my hand and solidifying a bit of light in my palm, I caught a downward kick coming from above my head. I could somehow feel it. It wasn't painful, more like a small vibration going up and down my arm. Looking up, I could see an angry, bloodthirsty bunny. Pay attention. She was usually loud during fights. But that didn't mean I hated it. Her volume could be quite pleasant sometimes, especially when I was deep in thought. Sorry, I'm still thinking about food, I said with a lazy smile. I was deliberately trying to annoy her. Frowning, she spun in the air and kicked a heel at my face. Quickly releasing her other leg, I moved to the right. She always had this serious expression during training. Every time she got angry at my laziness or lack of focus, she became even more motivated for some reason. Since I liked seeing her like this, oozing determination, I decided to annoy her whenever I could. Using her superior speed, she lunged at me again, this time staying on the ground, probably to gain a good foothold. She threw a roundhouse kick, and I met it with one of my own, covering my leg with a highly solidified light. I developed this during our training. I call it poor man's armament. It forms a shield around my skin and absorbs much of the impact. We were locked in that stalemate for a while. As long as I don't use too much of my quirk speed, Rumi and I have roughly the same power output. After all, speed is power. Now I think I could kick at near light speeds, with the help of my poor man's armament, of course. She was the one who gave up first, pulling her leg back and stumbling a bit, falling to the ground and lying there for a while. You really have a lot of energy. I was exhausted. We'd been at it for 3 hours, and I was a little out of breath too, but maybe it was the weights doing their talking. We should take a break. Let's start heading back. I just held out a hand and helped her up. She didn't need coddling. She wasn't actually that soft. It's getting late. As I said that, she was falling to the ground again. This time I caught her. She had that damn smile on her face, not adrenaline-fueled this time, just mischievous. I guess I'm really tired today. Take me. Once again, she wasn't asking. It's become a tradition at this point. If she's too tired, I have to take her back to her apartment, where she proceeds to walk very well toward her house. Sometimes I feel like she's just faking being tired. Really? Oh well. I put her on my back. She wrapped her arms around my neck and straddled me. Now, judging by her grip, I can tell she still has a little strength left, but I'm sure it's just my imagination. The veins popping out on my forehead were just as imaginary, but I would put up with it. Despite all the complaints I made, I still found her quite likable. Her energy, her confidence, even that smile I keep mentioning, it can all be quite intoxicating. There was nothing romantic between us, probably because of the age difference. It didn't really bother me much. I was much older mentally anyway, but it was probably conflicting for her. She was still only 15 or 16 in a few months. I'll just go with the flow in this case, even if I have to wait a while. At least I didn't look like a teenager. Anyone who looked at me would say I was between 20 and 25 years old, and according to the psychological evaluations I had done a while back, I was also much more mature than most teenagers. They said my mental age was around 33. I went back to her apartment and dropped her off, and as usual, she walked perfectly from her doorway onward. I said my goodbyes and headed back to UA. I had a lot of sleep. Daily patrols were simply no longer necessary, and going to other cities was also too time-consuming. I only did that with Rumi. And that's it. I'll bring you the next chapter soon. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it.